Okay.
It's worse than the clock. It's
Okay,
worse than spring when the clock
can
goes
you
back
hear
up.
me?
It's way
Is
more
this
active
working?
when that goes- yeah.
I'm off of mute.
Why are we still doing it?
Jan,
No good reason.
did you hear it? It's working. Is this working? Can you hear this, Bob? Can you hear this? Is this working? We can't hear. I am number 12. Oh, where did you find the number? Oh, you mean that big 12? So do you have an accident report, Tanner? Did you have to go through that?
I did.
What happened?
I couldn't really tell. I just saw the one car that was sitting there in the middle of the road. Of course, the fire truck and the ambulance.
Okay.
Guys were sweeping up all the
Okay.
Debris. All the debris.
Okay. Okay, guys, see if your microphones are working.
Test.
Hello. Yeah, they are. Yeah, Corey, you did good. They are now. We can hear them now.
Test 1, 2.
They're working.
Okay. Okay, while Tanner's still up, let's call this meeting to order. And I would ask Murph if he would lead us in Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Play ball.
Okay. Let's go right to the cog rail, a little update on that. We went over and stepped out the area for Lamb Construction to Tamp. Once that's done, and he thinks that he can get right on that in the next day or two because the weather's holding and the snow's gone off of it. So we'll tamp a larger area. If you want to see where that's at, the stakes are out. Then when that's tamped, we'll go back over and step out where the tracks will actually lie. And we're in good shape with the cog rail. They've got the tracks pulled and the ties stacked, so as soon as we get a truck lined up and that gets tamped, then we can go down and get the ties. We've talked to Darren and city staff, and they're so kind to offer their services to help us get that laid. I guess I need to know if we need any permits from the city. Great, thank you. So the permit situation is handled. And then Kip, I would ask if you possibly have any, I guess they call it tailings, asphalt tailings, if there would be enough to put under the tie and the track. That's all it needs to be, not the whole place that's tamped, just under the ties and the track. Well, the rails are 60 foot long and the car is 10 feet wide. So I would say for it to be on the outside of the ties and because I'm not sure how long the ties are.
Not speak for Kip, but if we probably, we don't know the specific location.
Uh-huh.
We could get the square footage, so we know how much.
We'll find that out. Because I know it'll be 60 feet long, but I don't know how wide. I think 10, but it could be 12. 12. Okay, so that'd be 60 by 12 by 60. Yes, no, Lamb is going to do that, and it's right behind the depot at Bergstrom Park on that first tier of Woodland Station. Be about down the middle. be right past the alley.
Staked out.
So if you want to drive over there, Kip, you can see where the stakes are. Now, it's not that big, like I said. We're tamping a larger area than what the tracks are going to need. So, but that's all we need under the track and ties. Yes. No, not the car. Only the ties and the rails. We're going to get it all set up so that when they bring the car up, they could just set it on them. The day the car is going to come is the 20th. We haven't set that yet. After today, and we've got one truck lined up. We're trying to price out to see if we can get another. And we're talking with Anderson, Carl Anderson. He might have a truck big enough to hold it. So we're working on dimensions with him. And as soon as we get that, probably in the next week, so that we can have it done. Again, it's all pending weather, the hauling of the railroad car, all of it. So we've got a nice break here, so we're pushing it kind of hard to get it done.
Right now, you think this is the bonus from us and some labor?
Yes. And when they bring the rails up, when we go down and get the rails and the ties, they're going to send 2 of their railroad guys up here with them to help lay that. So we just need a little bit of labor, and they will help and make sure it's all set right. And I will keep in touch with you or Darren, which, as to the dates and the times and. Okay. Okay, any questions from the board on that? Yeah, Jerry?
Well, I was just sitting there thinking, and I've looked at the site the other day. What I'm wondering is, that's going to be big equipment coming in there. Will they be able to access it properly?
They've already come up and looked at it.
Okay.
So the crane and the truck that's going to haul the car has already scouted how they're going to get in and out. Now, when they come, when we get the specific time and date, I will call the police department and notify them prior so that they can be there to help us with traffic and make the turns and such. Yes, Jerry?
This one's probably more for Canada. How is the development? How is it
And the location of the car.
That's a great question. We haven't had enough time to work the overall site plan to a point that works well for everyone. So having those conversations currently.
Okay, do we have any more questions on the car? We've got all the support in the world from the COG people, from the COG station. They just, Paul, would you like to say anything? You're talking to Ted down there and to Spencer. Would you like to say anything, or are we just all a go?
I think it's so wonderful to see everybody come together on this project. So pleased. I can't say enough about the cooperation from the city and the DDA coming together and making this happen.
Thank you, Paul.
It's a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Jan mentioned something about having like a little event, like when it comes, at the different stages of putting this together. Are we still?
Yes, we're still working on it. Now, going to Bob, I talked to Mountain Jackpot, and Pat, if Courier would get on board with this too, it'd be awesome. But Mountain Jackpot is running an article in this paper and the next on bringing the car up. They have pictures, and I'm going to work with Johns to talk about the information to do the article on, and all the people that have volunteered their time, services, and money will hopefully be mentioned in those articles. So we're going to try to create a hype so that we get footage and we get people involved in moving. I mean, this is going to be a heck of a move. I mean, this is a monster. And to see it come up the pass and to see it come into Woodland Park and to watch that big old crane lift it, and I mean, I think we can make it like a historic car and a historic event, and we can celebrate it every year. And
I'd like to volunteer to help with
great,
the little events.
great.
Is there a possible time of arrival for the
That will
car?
be determined. And again, it's all on the weather. They're going to the car that we get, excuse me, is the only live car down there. So they're going to use it to move the other cars around that the cog rail still owns, because they're going to be refurbished. So they'll do those first, and ours will be the last car loaded. Probably they'll not get that all done in one day. So we're planning on the 20th being the day that they load our car and come up the hill, and the crane should follow the car up. It may take them a little longer to break down the crane. If it does, then it'll either be unloaded the afternoon of the 20th or the morning of the 21st. That's as close as we can pinpoint it. Well, that's the next thing I was going to talk about. So I thought I'd call John DeVoe and Lois and see if Lois could help us get into the band. I don't know who to call at school. Steve Wolf. Well, would you do that, Jan? Would you handle that to get the band there? Even if it's the athletic band, the smaller one. That would be great. Okay, if you'll do that, that'll get the band. And
No, I'm just saying, way to accept that being voluntold. So this railroad car still functions?
yeah. And
Mayor, what do you think about laying track around the city and we'll just go ahead? Public transportation.
Our own bike rail.
I love it.
And that man that was here last, remember he worked on that, and he did work on car 15?
Yes.
So
And the man who still works down there, who's going to be driving car 15, moving all these others around, is going to come up to set the rails and will also help us.
Oh, I'm sure he'll love that.
Oh,
Oh, the band. Oh.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Are you going to Cornish?
No, but I have another meeting with him, so if you talk to him,
Would you do that then? Thank you.
Neil, that would be great. Thank you. If you can stage that, you bet. Okay, any more ideas? Bob?
when this is in place, are people going to have access to the inside of the car?
Yes. Probably not right away, because we have to work out, who's going to take care of this thing and who's going to be managing it, who's got the keys and who's going to schedule. But yes.
Like a tour
Yes.
of it
Well,
the day it arrives.
Whatever, we're getting here. Past that, we've got several options. Then we'll deal with the options, because we have developers that are interested in it. The Historical Society is interested in it. We're forming a foundation that can just maintain it and watch over it, no matter who's got it, because it still belongs to Woodland Park. So, Jerry?
Well, you brought up Historical Society, and that just seems like a perfect mesh to me. They managed it and could help assist putting the monuments and stuff around, describing the history of it, the Pikes Peak, how many times it went up and down that mountain,
Yeah.
and all this kind of stuff. And the Historical Society would be a good.
Well, and that's why I called them, and they are on board. I don't know, we'll just see how active they want to be in it, but they do support it.
Didn't Alan Chamberlain work for the city? Yeah, it's Telecom. Because he was here at the last meeting, and he made a comment, which I don't know how he could do it, but I thought it was kind of cool, where the front end of the car would be up, so when you were looking at it, it still looked like it was climbing Pikes Peak.
If you would remember his name so we can get his phone number
Alan
and,
Chamberlain.
okay. Could we call and get his phone number? Just,
I know Al Chamberlain real well.
great.
There you go.
Would you get his phone number?
Yeah, I would not be a fan of elevating the cost because I see it as a hospital, visitor, tourist center, all their things that are beneficial to the citizens and the city. Or maybe
It could be dangerous.
developers
It just sounded great.
elevate not conducive to this.
Thank you. Now the man who is going to help bring us up at work, he has driven this car how many times up and down that mountain?
I think he did 1,700
Trips with this car.
car 15.
Yeah.
And that's in this time period, and there were other conductors.
So anyway, it's got a lot of history. Yeah. So anyway, moving forward, if there's no more questions about the cog car, it's a work in progress. No?
So just listening to everybody, what a great opportunity. One thing is to consider while it's being installed to look for a informational billboard or board that can go by it and show what the history, what it's doing. We already have one there for information as a part of that. But something like that, right by the car, when visitors come when it's closed, they can see the history, they can read it, and then if there's hours of, like on weekend, hours of tours,
Right.
start thinking about what we want to put on that.
Okay. Good point. We'll do that. Okay. If there's nothing else, go ahead.
I have nothing else on the car.
Okay.
But on the agenda, we need to address items 3 and 4, the agenda and the minutes.
Oh, well, I got so
You're just too
excited.
anxious on that
I
car.
right to the car. Thank you for
That's a high
catching
point,
that.
yeah.
Thank you for catching that. Okay, then we need to go back to additions, deletions, and corrections to the agenda. Are there any? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
So maybe.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Okay, we're on the straight and narrow, on the right track.
On the right track.
Skip 4, since we already did that.
Good.
And go right to finance. I'd like to, before I turn this over to Tanner, you see that we have the mill rates, the business license, and the sales tax vendor fee on here. The reason this is on our agenda is because it's on City Council's agenda. And I would like us, as a board, one, to understand what these three are, to have some discussion about it, and then decide if we would like to, as a board, make a recommendation to council on behalf of our constituents that voted DDA in existence. So, the mill rates. Tanner, would you explain the mill rates and why this is on here and what council is also going to have some conversation about?
I'll do my best.
Okay.
So,
Mill rates. Okay. Right.
welcome, County Tax Assessor. It's nice to see you here in the room.
Perfect time.
Yes.
So the mill rate is the tax rate, essentially, that's levied on property taxes. And taxing entities like the county, the city, fire, ambulance, library, schools, levy mills, and that's part of the equation that derives the taxes due on every property every year. As values of properties rise, the same number of mills levied by those entities results in a larger tax bill for property owners, and that's what's happening right now. throughout the region, if not the nation, but particularly here, values are going up. This is a reassessment year, and new values are out, and residential values have climbed quite a bit, somewhere in the 30% range, and commercial properties have climbed less, somewhere around 8%, 8 to 10% commercial property values, and so this is causing tax bills to increase. And in our district, because the district is primarily commercial properties, and there's a rather large effect on the district in terms of taxes due. So,
Okay.
in thinking along the lines of what DDA does through tax incentive or assistance with projects through tax increment financing, it just seems that the overall tax rate levied against all the properties is something that's controllable, and in this case, not necessarily by the DDA, but by the other taxing entities. And a lower rate saves money for those property taxpayers, and at this point, with the increase in values, is a lower rate in the interest of those property owners, or not.
Okay.
Does that make any sense? I'm
Well,
sorry. I
yeah,
wasn't
does
real
that make
prepared.
sense to the rest of the board? Do you have any questions?
That's kind of one. Question for Colt, I guess. What's our business valuations looking like at percentage-wise? You know, just a ballpark average of what we're seeing in the Woodland area. You know what our percentage increases are on the business properties valuation?
For the city is about 15%.
15?
Yeah, total,
Okay.
that's about the increase. The total value, total item cost.
Okay, great.
So the total increase in revenue for the city is about $281,000. That's about 15% increase for total revenues. There's a lot of different factors and variables that play into a reduction, and I just want to make sure that you have the full information in this process.
Good.
Gallagher limit, as you know, last year the General Assembly came and recommended a 6.11 residential assessment rate. We're currently at 7.15. A reduction in the residential assessment rate to 6.11 could reduce our revenues by $291,000 a year. So it would completely erase any increase in revenues to the city and reduce our revenues by $10,000 if the General Assembly were to approve that in the next legislative session. So it's pretty dangerous to do a reduction and then because that would just, let's say we reduced it by the amount of $281,000, and then the Gallagher amendment came in, you would have a hole of $291,000 above and beyond the additional revenue that we saw. So is there a chance to do that entire 6.1? Yeah, there's a small chance. You roll the dice and do that, and then we have a significant issue with providing services, improving infrastructure in the city. So there's a point. I think there's a point in the future when we want to look at reducing the mill levy. Right now, we're a little higher than the state average. The state average, I think, is 13.8 something. But then again, you look at our sales tax, and we're generally below, as a city, we're about 0.6% below the state average in sales tax. And so you balance those two to provide the appropriate revenue that you need to provide services to the city. So in the past, I obviously had nothing to do with that, but we balanced those. So we have a little bit of a lower sales tax than we have a little bit of a higher mill levy. If you were to put both of those at the averages for the state, we would actually be making about $500,000 more a year in revenue because the sales tax is so low. And so you just got to look at it from different perspectives. But I'm not in opposition to a mill levy reduction in the future. I just don't think this is the right time. So that's the city's position, city staff's position.
Okay.
I really don't.
We kind of caught you off guard. We
I'm not here on policy, I'm more here to listen, but there is a tool out there used on occasion by taxing authorities called the temporary mill levy. Want to use that?
I should have it on myself.
So there is the temporary mill levy reduction that you guys can do, any taxing authority can do. It's a tool not used very often, and then at some point, usually within a year or two, you can raise the rate back up to where it was under Tabor. Now, the temporary mill levy program has never been court tested. Now, taxing authorities have been using that tool for a while. It's never been court tested under Tabor where you can go back up or just keep it low. So that it's going to be interesting to see what would happen on that if there's a court test at some point. So you do have some arrows in your quiver. I'm not here on policy. We're here on project evaluations. But I think what Darren's here, what he is saying, is right on target in areas on the analytics. I'm not here about policy though.
And I would just mention that we have, that would be something I would definitely recommend to the city council. If you're going to take the extreme move to do a reduction despite the impact of the operations, you should look at other policy alternatives, and one of those would be to do a temporary tax reduction where it doesn't have a structural budget impact to the city in the future, where they can provide relief later. Because once you do a full reduction, you have to go back to the voters to get that back. And you have to, if you're going to do that, you really need to understand the operational impact of what you're doing. One thing I'd like to say is that things that maybe haven't discussed, I know Tanner knows this, that the city really, in reality, only collects about 15.149 mill levy versus the 16.249 because the city diverts, based on the DDA being created, it diverts about $144,000 to the DDA every year as part of the tax increment financing district or tax district 68. I think 68, right? So at some point, that's $144,000 out of that 16.249 that we do not see each year. So that's about $144,000 the city diverts, would normally receive, that's diverted to the DDA. I think that's important to also understand.
Okay. And then that will come at the end of the DDA in 12, 13 years. You'll get that back.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I've already made a recommendation to City Council that we reduce our mill levy to 15.149 when. Yeah. Okay. That we reduce the mill levy to 15.149 when the DDA ultimately resolves in the future. I think that would be something that would be a fair recommendation to City Council. And so, I know staff supports, at least from that perspective, but that's a decision to be made in the future by future city councils.
Okay. Thank you for that information, Jan.
Did you just mention when we started talking about reducing the residential rate?
Yeah, so if you don't, so that's a Gallagher Amendment issue. It can be somewhat complicated. There's a requirement by the state under the Gallagher Amendment to achieve a 55% split between commercial and residential properties. You're on the street. Far more on this time, but
it just seems like residential, is the one that's concerned, and then commercial we get stuck.
And keep in mind that the city is about 93% residential, 7% commercial. So we're significantly residential. So reductions in the residential assessment rate, which has happened over the last 5 years, from 7.95 to 7.2 to 7.15 over the last 5 years, has had a significant impact. It's almost $220,000 a year less than we would receive today than we would have received in 2016, I think, for 15.
So let me address Gallagher a little bit. When you're perhaps the courses of action to think about state constitutional amendment passed 1981 with the 55-45 split that they're talking about. The state constitutional amendment. The folks to discuss that with Mark Bakesley, the state representative for this area, and Dennis Heisey, the state senator. In fact, you might want to consider inviting before they go into Capitol in January. The state legislature has been quite reticent to deal with Gallagher. Right now they're dealing with Tabor. Today, whether really to keep the tools and with Tabor, with Proposition CC there, I mean the law won't go away, because the mechanism, the level mechanism is there. But Gallagher, that really is a state, that's a state constitutional amendment. The two folks are Baisley and Isaac Cochran. Your state senator and your state representative. My office has no dog in that. But we're not a policy office at all. We enforce it. And it's very strict. But that is where it's at. So when you're talking about the commercial side, residential, that's the state level. And really, it has to be a state constitutional amendment change. And there's been discussion on that, and there should be. It's been around since 1981, so almost 40 years. Maybe it's time for a relook, but not my level. It's something different.
From a historical perspective, just to jump on that, is that the city hasn't done a tax increase in 28 years. Hasn't done a tax rate increase. The one is because the city is de-Bruced. But every other non-de-Bruced taxing authority, besides DDA, in the city that impacts all of our businesses, have asked for a tax increase in that 28-year period, because the Gallagher Amendment has continually reduced their revenues over time. The city approved last year a 0.5% sales tax increase because the property taxes for the ambulance district couldn't fund the ambulance district because of Gallagher. They could have went to Gallagher and asked for a Gallagher stabilization measure, but they chose to do a sales tax instead. There's some things that can be done, but that was a choice that they had. The Sheriff's Department last year as well, or this year actually, considered for putting a ballot initiative on this election because they couldn't pay their sheriff's deputies enough to keep retention numbers where they needed them at the Sheriff's Department. Ultimately, they decided to use some of their excess tax recognition. They know Teller County is also de-Bruced. So they ended up making the decision rather than ask for a property tax increase as well. So there's Gallagher Amendment does have a significant impact on local government taxing authorities, and it has been a bipartisan discussion for the last, I think, 4 years or so to see what they can do. The intent when it was passed was to provide relief to residents, not businesses. So the state decided at that point. And is it unfair to businesses? It does put the burden on businesses, no doubt. That's what Gallagher is there for. So there might be a good point to bring any lobby the general legislature to General Assembly to see what they can do about those impacts.
I just have a
Good
question.
advice.
You're
Yeah.
saying, like, I know our sheriff's department and our police department are paid a lot less than like what Pasco County. The taxes down there are less than what we pay up here, so how can that, explain that to me?
Say what? Sorry.
Our sheriff's department and our police department are paid less. These people come here, they get trained, and then they're gone to make more money somewhere else. We can't blame them for that.
We're trying to fix that.
It's a different marketplace. Within Colorado, we have 6 tiers of counties. Current Lake counties are categorized as Tier 1. And those are large counties, Denver County, El Paso County, Maryland County, North County, Jones County, Adams County. Tier 1 counties. And the pay, at the county level, the pay scales are different for those folks. They're substantially higher. Teller County is a rural county, according to Colorado, not according to U.S. government. This is a Tier 3 county, not a Tier 2, a Tier 3. And on a Tier 3 county, elected officials on average are paid 25 to 33% less than their salary level volunteer firm range, Tier 1 county. And it goes all the way down to say like Tier 6. Think of Routt County, really small counties in the south, western quarter of the state. So, rural counties have less income and are paid less. Now here, quite often, for salaries, the balancing act, and I think we all agree is quality of life. Against far range, on the traffic, far range, we have a higher quality of life here, yes. Now those police agencies, sheriffs, they don't want to be a revolving door for talent that comes in, gets trained, gets certified, and goes down to El Paso County. But in many respects, that's where we're at. How do you compete against that? Well, quality of life, leadership, management, all the great things that a great organization can offer. You're still going to lose talent, but you're also going to acquire talent. And I think, in many respects, a lot of the folks who stay here are those veterans who served in the Army, the Air Force, and the Marines. Coast Guard, who have, let's say, a retirement, have benefits, and certified. If you want to stay here and have a quality of life, great place to raise your kids, a great place for the spouse to work. So there are other competing factors besides money. So money is something somebody's always looking for. Tier 1 counties will always beat us. And that's just life. I mean,
we do have a higher cost of living here, and at least with the park, there's actually some pretty significant differences. Just because we're somewhat in the metro district, we fall under PTACG. The Cripple Creek is about 18% lower in cost of living than Woodland Park, and so that's where the county seat is, and I believe that's a lot of times what's driving some of the sheriff's wages as well. So we compete directly with Colorado Springs as a result of our proximity to Colorado Springs and as a suburb of Colorado Springs. So we have raised our wages for our police department. They are equivalent to essentially Monument at this point because of our size. We can't possibly compete directly with Colorado Springs. They're about $20,000 more a year, and it's much more difficult, much more competitive to get into their police department. Not that we have a great police department, but there's so many people that apply because of the size of the Colorado Springs Police Department. But again, there is a reason, I think, why they get shot at more down there.
Yeah.
There's that too. There is more.
Yeah. Okay.
There's differences.
Okay.
Just to leave you with this, because I know you guys need to move on. My office would be more than happy to come back, perhaps next quarter. I don't know if you guys are meeting in December, but next quarter, I have a great place on the Gillette Rapids area, Colorado Demography Office. I can give a 15-minute snapshot. I can give a 2-hour snapshot. It's an incredible presentation.
Okay.
Also, I have handouts that I can bring to one of my in my office here on, we have a great handout on mill levies. I think Tanner has seen it during his meeting, and I don't have that with me, but I have to come back to you the entire mill levies within Carroll County for every district and where they're at. And actually, in January, we'll have a new handout on that based on the changes in income. Okay, so maybe next quarter, if you want my office here, happy to be here.
Thank you, Corey. Great. We will set that up because I think that would be very good.
Perhaps February.
Yes.
February.
When we're a little slower. Yes. Thank you very much, both of you, for helping out there. Then we go right into the business license. Oh, Tanner, I'm sorry.
Well, thank you very much for the information. And I guess the reason that this is on the agenda is to see if the board sees any value in having a position. It's not, the mill rates are not, we have no authority over mill rates, none whatsoever. So that should be made clear. I can't help but think, though, that in representing a district, a commercial district, central business district of the city, that regardless of a number of the factors that the city or the fire district or others have to consider, when I think of just our district, I think it's in the district's best interest to pay a lower tax rate, particularly at a time when values are increasing. And without getting into, well, what are the effects on the city and what are the effects on other taxing districts, those are their considerations. Okay, I'm suggesting that from our limited position as the DDA, that it is a positive thing if any taxing entity out there chose to reduce their mill rate. It would be a good thing for our district because those commercial properties and residential would be paying less tax at a time when, well, perhaps not even less, a lower tax rate at a time when their values are going up and their tax bills are rising. So when we're in the business of doling out tax incentives because it's good for business, I see this as an overarching tax incentive for the local economy in general. And that's what I'm proposing. Is that...
And that's basically for just the district.
Well, that's the position we have. We can't speak beyond the district, right? We're the Downtown Development Authority. We have a boundary, and that's what we represent. So in representing that district, is it good or bad or indifferent to us if mill rate from any taxing entity were to decrease? I would suggest it's good, and we should recognize that and say we support a reduction in the mill rate by any entity that's willing to do so.
Okay. Murph?
I'm in agreement with Tanner on that, but understanding, business is business, and cities are not, they're not revenue generators, and from the aspect they're tax generators. I think that it would be a much more in our interest to go for that to help build the business district if people see lower taxes, but at the same time, how do we as business owners help drive that, drive business and push business to increase the sales tax revenues to replace those funds for the city, because it's a double-edged sword. More business equals more wear and tear on roads, everything else, and more use of police services. So do we stay where we're at and be happy with it, or do we look at, I think it's in everybody's best interest to try and push the mill levy rate down, but see how we can increase business to raise tax revenues or assist the city in bringing additional revenues in to cover those shortfalls, if there are any. Okay, you understand what I mean? Does everybody get what I'm saying?
Yes, we do. Jerry?
Well, I think obviously we've taken a position. We need a workshop to discuss this. But I see the city right now with the cultural center has changed its complexion. Now it's they're for-profit. Everything is the city scrambling. In my view, should try to compensate for loss of funds. So there's got to be a balance. Say for us, this is good. You guys figure out how to survive. So we need a really good discussion.
Okay, then let me ask you this. Do we want to, instead of go on here, do we want to just schedule a workshop and really look at this and see how we can work with the city and help? Because the whole idea of the DDA is to generate growth, sales tax, property tax, which we're trying to do. Would a lower property tax or mill levy help do that more? I think you're right. Workshop discussion is important, and I think including the city in that would really help so that we can really get our hands around how we can best develop our district.
Well,
Jerry?
There's a lot of, here lately it seems like it's us against them type thing. And you know what? I'd like to see us all work together, what's good for us, what's good for the city,
Okay.
and come to, we're all, I just like to work together.
Develop a plan?
Okay. Jan?
And I think when we do the workshop, I think it's really important to invite Darren to come to that. So that
Well, that's what we said, work with the city, so we've got the information. Are you up for that, Darren?
I've been exploring this quite a bit for the last year. There's a lot of things there's a lot of creative things that the city can do to include the tax credit discussion. There's also a discussion that I've had this discussion with several city council members, but it doesn't necessarily resonate well, but is that there could be a discussion about just like the school district did, remember this, is to reduce our mill levy to the state average of 13.8 and reduce our increase our sales tax to 3.25 or so, and that would be revenue neutral to the city. And so that's a possibility too, right? That could be, we've not done that, and I don't know how amenable our community would be to that, but that would be an issue, a method or a valid initiative that could be beneficial to the businesses downtown.
Okay, Murph?
I would rather see it go with how do we increase commerce without raising the tax. Increase commerce, don't raise the taxes, sales tax, increase the commerce of the amount of traffic, the amount of people we attract, and increase our revenues that way as opposed to increasing the sales tax. Because, man, I'll tell you what, every time I turn around, people look at the tax line on the frickin' receipt and go, oh my God. And I know people who drive from Woodland Park to Divide because they don't have to pay taxes. They'll go to Venture Business and shop just because of the tax, even though they pay more out there. I don't know.
Okay, well, let's set up, in lieu of time, let's set up a time. Do we agree that a workshop would be beneficial
But let's not
for
decide
us?
one right now.
Then we'll move it forward and not even continue with this. And we'll set up a time in conjunction with Suzanne and Darren that we might be able, and council, that we might be able to work a workshop. We'll put that together and talk about it at our next meeting. Is that okay? Does that suit the board?
Yes.
Does that suit all of you? Does it suit the board? Okay. Then we'll move on with the workshop and we'll progress. Okay, the development proposal. What?
The business license and sales tax vendor fee.
Oh, you don't want to just include that in the workshop? Okay, vendor license, or business license, I'm sorry. Business license is $50. Now, that doesn't sound like very much money, but we're right up there with downtown Denver and Aspen, and, you know, I just wonder if that's just a place that would just be more of a gift for our business people, probably, than I mean, it isn't going to make or break probably any business, but that puts $50 somewhere else for that business. Any comment on that?
The city collects approximately $100,000 a year in business license fees. That's a fee imposed upon commercial enterprise within the city. If it were a tax, they couldn't do it. It would require a vote in order to make it happen. It's a fee, which can be imposed without a vote. It's not a huge amount of money for business, and for the most part, $50. But when you think about the total collected, $100,000, that's coming out of businesses on an annual basis in Woodland Park, it's not necessarily insignificant. And if the city and DDA are serious about economic stimulus and economic and downtown development, every little bit adds up. If that business fee were eliminated, $100,000 per year would remain in the local economy and not be taken out. So is that in the district's best interest? That was the question. Same with the sales tax vendor fee. This actually came up in conversation between Al and myself, that at one time the city paid a fee to businesses that were collecting and remitting the sales tax, much like the state does. The state and county taxes, if you file and pay on time, you, as a business, you get to save 2.7% or something like that, 3%. And some time ago, that fee was removed. And is it something that the DDA thinks is in the interest of the district to support reinstatement of the vendor fee? Those are just
Al, you've got some thoughts on that?
Yes.
ago, there was a time too when cash flow to the city, was declining. And this was one of the mechanisms that we used to help reduce that leakage that was going on. So at that time, as I recall right, it was to be a temporary reduction of that particular vendor fee. But it has remained in effect. Now, yes, it is a vendor fee, but it's a reduction in the taxes that are collected that are then remitted, to the city. So it's not really a city fee that's being paid. It's a reduction in the revenue that's coming into the city's treasury. So that's a little bit different character to it. So it's part of the sales tax that's collected. The reason for it was that they recognized at the state level when they instituted this whole thing was that they recognized all of the tax collecting entities were actually having to have specific accounting mechanisms to do that. So they're going to help offset some of that accounting cost, and that's what it was for.
Okay, does everybody understand that? On the board does?
Fully.
Well, you missed it. I remember it, and it really did make an impact on all of us.
Like it keeps coming up. It's a whole series of small ones that makes a significant impact.
Right.
Now, and I recognize that a lot. Now I'm starting to get into the philosophy. I recognize that there is a pie. Each business has a certain pie of revenue, and how much the owner of the business gets to keep. That's what attracts them into business. As that more of that pie goes to a wide variety of taxing entities, then there's less incentive for that business to stay in operation. If we've got a bigger pie and a bigger piece for the owner of the business, they may be more interested in looking at Woodland Park. If not, they're going to look to some other place where their business plan is going to be more successful and they get more reward for their labors. So as Murph had mentioned, we want this to be an attractive area for people to be in entrepreneurial pursuits, doing all of the things that they do, providing services, collecting taxes, and being a part of the community. But if we keep shrinking that pie for the entrepreneur, they just won't be here, or they'll go away.
And that's the philosophy behind this discussion.
Yeah.
And as we're discussing this, I would like to say that we're not here to talk about taking money out of the city's pocket or making it more difficult. We need to adjust, help them adjust, and what is taken away we need to replace with something else, and that's the purpose of this, is the development of Woodland Station and anything else in our district that can generate sales tax and more value. Jan?
I'm sure that the rest of you have all heard this because I've heard this for years. It's so difficult to do business in Woodland Park. It shouldn't be that way.
No.
But you're right, we don't want to be talking about taking money away from the city. How can we change that perception, make that a positive thing, not focusing on negative, because that's not getting
No.
anywhere. But I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that because I'm going to close because it's too difficult to do business here. Okay, well, offer up a solution. Even if it doesn't work, at least offer up a solution. Just don't say a negative statement like that, and you're saying it to other people, and then leave. That doesn't help the situation.
No. So, go ahead. We've got 5 minutes and then we're going on.
I'm going to reflect on two things that are coming together right now that's helpful to the city as well as the results of the DDA. We've got two recent business ventures that have now come online. One is the coffee kiosk that is down here at the end of the road. That's generating some more sales tax. That piece of ground was not conducive to anything. But now we've got production there. And we've got the motel unit coming online. That's a huge benefit.
Yeah.
So that's going to benefit, what, lodging tax, sales tax?
Right, and that should bring a lot more money to the
Those are
city
huge
as well.
Positive things that the DDA has been involved in. So this helps the city too.
But I want to really stress to the city that these conversations are not to take from them. We just need to figure out how to help everybody.
And if we can make it more conducive to entrepreneurial pursuits of one nature or another, as they have demonstrated, that's very productive for our community totally.
And us
Not
as the
just
DDA.
the DDA district.
Right.
Even though this is where it starts.
Okay, Murph, you had your hand up.
I was just going to say that's I think all this needs to come out in the workshop, and we need to put together a very effective agenda on how we can decrease the burden on the business owner or the entrepreneur, but still increase the revenues to the city. So that's the proof is in the pudding.
Right.
The devil's in the details, but that needs to be our main focus.
And I'm sorry that the mayor has left and that Darren has left and did not hear this part of the conversation. Hopefully, Suzanne, you will relay the message.
You know,
Jan?
I think it's very important that you have to have the whole picture, because a lot of the people that say it's difficult to do business, it's because it was something that they wanted to do and there was a little problem with them getting to do it, that they don't have all the facts. Because when you have all the facts, you understand the whole situation, not just one little thing. I've got a problem with the dog park. I mean, I've got a few people out there that just like to stir up trouble, and so they take a few things, and what they're saying is really not true. And so they need all the facts, and from whatever we glean from this workshop, working together with the city, and I think that's really important, that people see that everybody's trying to work together to rectify this or to help it in some way, but they need all of the facts, not just
We're
one little piece.
gonna try to do that. Okay, we are out of time. We're gonna move on because we've got more issues to do. We will set up a workshop time. It may even be after the holidays. I really don't know if we can get any. I have to talk to the city to find out when they're going to decide on the budget and how this would affect and how much time we have, and try to get a workshop before that vote is taken. Past that, I don't know. So we will research this. Okay, moving on to the down proposals of Woodland Station. An update from the negotiating committee. That would be Murph and Tanner. Whoever wants to take the lead there.
Tanner, I defer to your eloquence.
This is the wrong day for that.
Long day?
Wrong day for that.
Just let it out.
Negotiations are going well.
I love it.
That's it.
I've had a couple of conversations with Murph. As the negotiating committee, we've talked a couple times about our position after the last meeting and what we're trying to do. And I have been in touch with George Christian, had a good long conversation with him to convey some of what came out of that last meeting, and as well as Mark Weaver and Derek Wagner had a good conversation there. So more details that I can provide in the executive session if we hold that. And I did have a meeting with John Romero of NES, who came up to Woodland Park, met with me at Tweeds. We talked through the proposals that we've received for Woodland Station, some past plans, and...
Hold it. Does everybody know what NES is?
Yes.
Everybody? Okay, NES. Tell who has NES.
Land planners, landscape, and land use planning company there in Colorado Springs. They've done a lot of work for the DDA in the past, as well as for various other entities, including the city of Colorado Springs, and probably, I think, the city of Woodland Park.
So development planners that do the
right.
paperwork. Okay, so everybody knows. Go ahead now.
And in any event, Mr. Romero came to see me and was already fully up to speed with the history of Woodland Station, had found all the files in their records, and had a the recent traffic circulation study with them, and information about the reliever route and alternate routes that have been defined, and that it was a pleasure to meet with and speak with that professional.
Great.
Yeah. So he is preparing some cost information estimates for what he thinks it may cost to work with NES to bring the various concepts together under a master plan that will allow us to continue moving forward, hopefully more efficiently.
Great. Good news.
How much does something like that cost?
Well, he's preparing that estimate,
So
and
that's prepared.
well, I got the impression, and we'll see, but that this initial phase that we need to sort of create a master plan that will allow all the parties, including the city, including any traffic engineers, including the developers and us, to look at the same page, to be on the same page, and modify that plan together so that whatever changes are being made by whatever party, all the others can see and understand, and hopefully end up with something that works well for everyone and allows us to move forward with some sort of traffic analysis and start to gauge what the requirements may be for development. So,
Well, hopefully,
a game plan.
hopefully this will be cost effective because of all the information he already has that we've already paid for. So hopefully that could come in use and it won't be real expensive. Yeah, Murph?
Well, the whole idea is to get everything together so we can come up with an actual cost. Because as it stands right now, we don't have an actual cost of what that traffic engineering and everything's going to cost, going to be at the end of the day, and then will the developers be able to pay for that? Is that going to be cost effective? Is it all going to come together in, we've got to have all the eggs in one, and we actually have to have all the eggs in one basket in this case before we can all move forward.
So would that be part of the square foot price of what we might be asking for the property
if I were a
once we add that cost in?
It could be. I
Could
think
be, it might be.
determining things like drainage and access and bringing that information to the negotiations with those developers will then put us in a position of making that decision. Well, is it best to maybe we fund certain improvements and they're paying a higher price for property? Maybe they want to help fund improvements and get a better price on property or whatever.
Okay. Al?
Yeah, one might even reflect the cost of a piece of ground, we'll say, University Park Shopping Center, when it was first a piece of ground, they paid a fairly low price comparatively. Once the company went through and fully developed that, did they charge the same price?
No.
No. So yes, developmental costs go into the cost of the land. Because even if a business wanted to go into there singularly on that vacant piece of ground, they would have to run in water, sewer, gas, telephone, all that stuff. So you either pay it as the front end load when you buy the land, or you do it when you develop it yourself. So yes, that's part of the cost of doing business and developing. Yep.
Okay.
Road.
Okay.
All that.
Then we're on track there, so that's good news. Let's go down to B, members and structure of the negotiating committee. Tanner?
That's
What does that mean?
just an agenda item.
Okay.
Every time we put the proposals for Woodland Station on here,
Okay.
these 3 line items are there, which gives the board an opportunity to consider the members and structure of the committee. If at any point things aren't going well, the board needs to make any changes, there's
Gotcha.
your line item.
All right. Then we'll move on past that. Are we prepared for general discussion? Does anybody have any more to say about the Woodland Station? And we do need to go into executive session to talk about. Do you have information that needs to come out there?
Some. It'll be brief.
So it'll be brief. Okay, so we'll go to general discussion then. Nick, do you have anything?
I don't.
Al?
Nothing additional. Thank you.
Ellen? Murph?
Monday, 11/11, Veterans Day. What a lot of people, many people realize that there's a lot of bad stuff here, but what they don't realize that while only 2% of our nation serves in the military. 25% of the community up here are veterans. Okay? So, 7 o'clock over at the Lions Park is the flag raising. Immediately following pancake breakfast at my place. At 9:30 goes the high school. The veterans, there's a presentation over there with the high school kids and other veterans. Then 11 o'clock starts $5 burger, fries, and drink at the Historic Youth Inn for veterans. And then at, 1800, the American Legion has their feed over at the Cultural Center. So it's going to be a very full day, a lot of stuff for veterans up there and everything. So I'll get that out there.
Good.
Come and have a good time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll pass that on.
If anybody has a veteran friend, if they're not a veteran and they know an old vet that needs transportation or help getting to my place, I will gladly buy you a $5 burger as well, or offer you the $5 burger for bringing an old vet in that needs a transportation or something. Okay.
Good.
For helping that vet out.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all.
If you haven't sent in your voting ballot, today is the day, I do believe. Please don't forget to vote. These are two important issues, so please do that. Corey, anything? Dan? No. Jerry?
The holiday home tour planning has gone very well this year.
Good.
That planning is nearing completion. The tickets have all been printed and are selling like crazy. For those of you interested in attending, just know that all the money raised by this event does go to support local nonprofits.
Okay.
The venues this year are outstanding. I'm really excited to see how these come together. It's going to be an awesome year for the home tour, so just wanted to get that out there early. And if you do purchase tickets before a deadline, just can't recall at the moment what that is, then you're entered to win Bronco tickets for a game in December. So.
Oh, good.
Yep. Hurry up. Bye now. Bye now.
Okay.
I don't recall.
Brooke, call Carolyn quick and ask her the dates.
It's the Raiders.
I know, right?
What are the dates of the holiday home tour?
The tour is the first weekend in December, which is December 7th and 8th.
Okay.
That Saturday is also the parade, and Tweed's open house is that weekend. So.
Cool.
Yep.
Good deal. Okay.
And the gala?
The gala is November 22nd.
Good deal.
And on another note, we have our first Moose's Loose planning meeting tonight at Tweed's at 6 p.m. So any who care to make it, please do.
Good deal. Okay. Brooke, do you have anything? Pat? Colt? Thank you for coming.
Your timing through the door.
Yep.
I mean, it was just like somebody said, go through the door.
It's like bushwhack. Thank you.
Always happy to be here, always ready to speak.
Thank you. We're with you. Okay.
Came out of the venture capital world and technology world, filling it out.
Thank you.
People I work with.
Thank you. There you go. Bob, does he? Then I would thank you for coming, and we'll take about a 3-minute break and go right into executive session. Do we need to read that before any petitioner? I will read this before we take our 3-minute break so we could go right into executive session after it's over. Determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiation, developing strategy, and negotiations, and instructing negotiation under CRS 246402 4E. 3-minute break and we will go into executive session.
Go.
Let me share something.
I did that without my glasses. I busted them.
Yeah.
Oh, why are you crying? Oh, I don't.
Do it.